What's up, everybody? Jeff Bannock here, and let's make sure we're live in the group. Here we go. Come on, you can do it. Take a couple seconds. Hope everybody's having an amazing day today. I'm excited for today. Happy Friday. Been our first week of reading through the Bible together here. Still waiting. Oh, I need to do this 1 second. Yeah, there we go. Now we can go live. There we go. And still waiting on the group. Sorry about a little late today. I was eating a breakfast. So, all right, we are live. What's up, everybody? What's up? Jeffrey Bannock here, and we are excited. Today is going to be chapter 16, 17, and 18 of Genesis, where we just left off. We did a lot of naming, and then we went through, ended up with God's covenant with Abram, giving him basically all the land, and that's where we were at. So, anyway, chapter 16. Now Sarai, Abram's wife, had borne him no children, and she had an Egyptian maidservant whose name was Hagar. So Sarai said to Abram, "See now, the Lord has restrained me from bearing children. Please go into my maid. Perhaps I shall obtain children by her." Okay. Interesting. So we've got like surrogacy, like pregnant surrogacy here at. Hey, what's up, Andrew? How you doing, brother? Good to see you. So that's interesting. We've got like children surrogacy way back in the day. She was like, "Hey, you can have sex with my wife and then have a child by, or my maidservant have a child by her." And Abram heeded the voice of Sarai, the Egyptian, and gave her to her husband Abram to be his wife. After Abram, he married her too to be his wife. Interesting. After Abram had dwelt 10 years in the land of Canaan, so he went into Hagar, and she conceived. Wow, we waited 10 years. And then she saw that, and when she saw that she had conceived, her mistress became despised in her eyes. Well, yeah, of course. Like that's the thing. Then Sarai said to Abram, "My wrong he upon you. I gave my maid into your embrace, and when she saw she had conceived, I became despised in her eyes, and the Lord judged between you and me." Like, well, of course, like there's going to be. I don't understand how people think there can't be jealousy with stuff like that. So Abram and Sarai, indeed, your maid is in your hand. Do to her as you please. And then Sarai dealt harshly with her, and she fled from her presence. Wow. That's pretty wild. So she's like, "Hey, have sex with my maidservant so she can have your kid." And then when he did, and she did, Sarai got mad and beat her so that she left. Or, well, it doesn't say, it says dealt with her horribly, harshly. I just figured it's beating, but that's wild. Now the angel of the Lord found her by the spring of water in the wilderness, by the spring on the way to Shur. And he said, "Hagar, Sarai's maid, when you have come from and where are you, misread there, and where are you going?" And she said, "I'm fleeing from the presence of my mistress Sarai." And the angel of the Lord said to her, "Return to your mistress and submit yourself to her hand." And then the angel of the Lord said to her, "I will multiply your descendants exceedingly, so that they shall not be counted for multitude." And the angel of the Lord said to her, "Behold, you are with child, and you shall bear a son. You shall call his name Ishmael, because the Lord has heard your affliction. He shall be a wild man, and he shall be greatest among men, and every man's hand against him. He shall dwell in the presence of all his brethren." Thus she called his name of the Lord, and who spoke to her, "You are the one God who sees." For she said, Have I also here seen him who sees me?" Therefore the will was called Beer Lohan Roy observed, is between Kadesh and Radir. So Hagar bore Abram a son, and Abram named his son who Hagar bore Ishmael. Abram was 86 years old when Hagar bore Ishmael to Abram. So he's still pretty young in there. Well, they're starting to die off around 200 years now, 150. So when Abram was 99 years old, the Lord appeared to Abram and said to him, I am God Almighty. Walk before me and be blameless, and I will make my covenant between me and you and multiply you exceedingly. Then Abram fell on his face, and the God talked to him, saying, As for me, behold, my covenant is with you, and you shall be a father of many nations. No longer shall your name be Abram, but now you shall be named Abraham. So he's Abram first, and now he's Abraham. Okay. For I have made you a father of many nations. I will make you exceedingly fruitful, and I will make nations of you, and kings shall come from you. And I will establish my covenant between me and you and your descendants after you in their generations for an everlasting covenant, to be God to you and your descendants after you. Also, I give you and your descendants after you the land in which you are a stranger, all the land of Canaan, which is everlasting, as an everlasting possession, and I will be their God. And God said to Abraham, As for you, you shall keep my covenant, you and your descendants after you throughout their generations. This is my covenant which you shall keep between me and you and your descendants after you. Didn't you just say like the same thing like 3 times there? And God said to Abraham, As you shall keep my covenant, you and your descendants after you throughout their generation, this is my covenant which you shall keep between me and you and your descendants after you. Every male child. Okay, so here is the covenant. Got you. So first he was saying it, and got every male child among you shall be circumcised, and you shall be circumcised in the flesh of your foreskin, and it shall be a sign of the covenant between me and you. So that's interesting. He who is 8 days old among you shall be circumcised, every male child in your generation. He who is born in your house or bought with money from any foreigner, he who is not your descendant. He who is born in your household and he who is bought with your money must be circumcised, and my covenant shall be in the flesh of your everlasting covenant. And the circumcised male who is not circumcised in the flesh of his foreskin, that person shall be cut off from his people. He has broken my covenant. Then Abram said to God, As for Sarai, your wife, she shall not call her name Sarai, but Sarah. Oh, so I was sort of right when I missaid it for Sarah. It's because I thought it was Abraham and Sarah. Shall be her name, and I will bless her and also give you a son by her. Then I will bless her, and she shall be mother nation, king of peoples, and kings of peoples shall be from her. All right, so wait a minute now. So we're talking about circumcision. Why? I mean, I understand we're not supposed to question God. And I'm cool because my mom had me circumcised, so I'm good. So according to the Bible, I'm good. But why is that? I understand if you look at it medically and scientifically, it can be considered like a cleanliness thing and different stuff like that. But why? I mean, why? I mean, not that guys, but why? Why is he just like, dude? Men like their penises, so I'm gonna take a piece off, or like, I mean, I'm trying to be a little funny, but not really trying to be funny. I'm just curious why this is important. I don't know. I'm gonna have to see if I can figure this out in the covenant of Abraham. So that's interesting. And that's where the term, I guess, Abrahamic religions come from, is from this point on where he's now Abraham and the word that he's passing from God to everyone else. So, and it's interesting his wife just was able to like beat that lady and now everything's good, or at least be horrible to her, whatever that meant. So, interesting. Let's see, King Nation. Then Abraham fell on his face and laughed and said in his heart, shall a child be born to a man who is 100 years old. And shall Sarah, who's 90 years old, bear a child? And Abraham said to God, Oh, that Ishmael might live before you. Then God said, No, Sarah, your wife shall bear you a son, and you shall call his name Isaac. I will establish my covenant with him for an everlasting covenant, and with his descendants after him. And as I blame, as for Ishmael, I have heard you. Behold, I have blessed him and will make him fruitful and will multiply him exceedingly. He shall beget 12 princes, and I will make him a nation. In my covenant I will establish with Isaac, whom Sarah shall bear to you this set time next year. Then he finished talking with him, and God went up from Abraham. So Abraham took Ishmael his son, all who were born in his house, and all who were bought with money, every male among the men of Abraham's house, and circumcised the flesh of their foreskin that very same day as God had said to him. Imagine that. Imagine you're just chilling, working. You could be a slave. You know, they had indentured servitude right now. That's what they're talking about with bought. A lot of times people would work off debts as slaves and stuff like that in the day. So he just shows up after making this covenant with God in the afternoon, and he just sort of shows up at the house. He's like, hey, everybody, get out the sharp knives. Make sure they're really sharp. We got some work to do. And he just literally, according to this, went and cut off everyone's foreskin. And at this point, even though they said it was 8 years old, here he's just like, everybody's getting it done. If you're with me, you got to get this done. This is my covenant with God. So very interesting. Like I could see it being like proving something like to God, you know, but it's just interesting that was the way it was done. You know what I mean? Like, dude, could you imagine that being like maybe you're like 15, 20 years old, and all of a sudden your master, for no better term, you know, shows up. He's like, got a covenant with God. Got to cut your foreskin off. Sorry. Golly, could you imagine what that would be like? That would just be crazy. So anyway, sorry, not to make light of the Bible really, but it is. If you think about it, it's sort of funny. He just showed up. He's just like, God said, and what's God said is law, which I agree. But that's interesting. Just jump off like that. So let's see here. He circumcised the flesh of their foreskin the very same day as God had said to him. Abraham was 99 years old when he was circumcised. Man, 99 and getting circumcised. They didn't, and that's the thing. They didn't have anesthetics or anything back then. So, you know, they do it now as a child, and you don't really, it hurts, but you don't really feel it, and you know what I mean? Or you don't really remember it, they say. I've heard it's very painful. I couldn't imagine that. Like, 99 years old, and he had his foreskin removed, and Ishmael's son was 13 years old when he was circumcised in the flesh of his foreskin. That very same day, Abraham was circumcised, and his son Isaac, and all the men in the house born in the house were bought with money from a foreigner were circumcised with him. Whew. It's a lot of foreskin, too, just floating around there. You got to have like a little, wow. So, chapter 18, the son of promise. So, this is, then the Lord appeared to him by this one I always have, the Terebinth trees in Miramir. This is a popular place. A lot of stuff happened around here when it came to them. As he was sitting in the tent door in the heat of the day, so he lifted his eyes and looked, and behold, 3 men were walking by him. And then he saw them, and he ran from the tent door to meet them, and bowed himself to the ground and said, My Lord, if I have now found favor in your sight, do not pass by your servant. Please let a little water be brought, and wash your feet, and rest yourselves under the tree, and I will bring a morsel of bread, that you may refresh your hearts after you have passed by, inasmuch as you have come by your servant. They said, Do as you have said. So Abraham hurried into the tent to Sarah and said, Quickly, make ready 3 measures of a fine meal, knead it, and make cakes. And Abraham ran to the herd, took a tender, and good calf, gave it to the young man, and hastened to prepare it. Gave it to young man, and he hastened to prepare it. So he took butter and milk and the calf which he had prepared, and set it before them, and he stood by them under the tree as they ate. Then they said to him, "Where is Sarah your wife?" He said, "Here in the tent." And he said, "I certainly return you according to the time of your life. Behold, Sarah your wife shall have a son." Sarah was listening in the tent door, which was behind him. Now Abraham and Sarah were old, well advanced in their age, and Sarah had passed by the age of childbearing. Therefore Sarah laughed Sarah laughed within herself, saying, "After I've grown old, shall I have pleasure, my Lord being old also? After I've grown old, shall I have pleasure, my Lord being old also?" And the Lord said to Abraham, "Why did Sarah laugh, saying, shall I bear a child since I'm old? Is anything too hard for the Lord? It, at that appointed time, I will return to you according to the time of your life, and Sarah shall have a son." But Sarah denied it, saying, "I did not laugh," for she was afraid. And he said, No, but you did laugh." Abraham intercedes for Sodom. Then the men rose from there and looked toward Sodom, and Abraham went with them to send them on their way. And the Lord said, "Shall I hide from Abraham what I've been doing, since Abraham shall surely become a great and mighty nation, and all the nations of the earth shall be blessed in him? For I've known him in order that he may command his children and his household after him, that they keep their way of the Lord, to do righteous and justice, that the Lord may bring Abraham what he has spoken to him." And the Lord said, "Because the outcry against Sodom and Gomorrah is great, and because their sin is very grave, I will go down and see whether they have done altogether according to the outcry against what has come to me, and if not, I will know." Then the men turned away from there and went down to Sodom, but Abraham still stood before the Lord. And Abraham came near and said, "Would you also destroy the righteousness of the wicked? Suppose there were 50 righteous in the city. Would you also destroy the place and not spare it for the 50 righteous that were in it? Far be from you to do such a thing as this, to slay the righteous with the wicked, so that the righteous shall be as the wicked. Far from it. You shall not judge all the earth do. Shall not the judge of all earth do right?" Interesting. All right, I'm going to keep reading, then we'll come back to that. So the Lord said, "If I find Sodom 50 righteous within the city, then I shall spare the place for their sake." Then Abraham answered and said, "Indeed, now I am who but dust, and ushers have taken it upon myself to speak to the Lord. Suppose there are 5 less than 50 righteous. Would you destroy all of it for the lack of 5? So he said, "If you find 45, I will not destroy it." And he spoke to him yet again and said, "Suppose there are 40 there." And then Jesus like, "Well, what if there's a little less? I will not." He said, "I will not do it for the sake of the 40." And he said, "Let not the Lord be angry, and I will speak. Suppose there are 30. He went from 40 to 30. He was going by 5s at first. Oh, this is interesting. We gotta get back on this. This is great. This is very interesting. And he said, "Suppose the Lord be angry. Suppose 30 would be found." So he said, "I will not do it if there's 30 there." And he said, "Indeed, now I've taken it upon myself to speak to the Lord. Suppose 20 would be found there." So he said, "I will not destroy it for the sake of 20. And then he said, wow, that's crazy. Then he said, "Let not the Lord be angry, but I will speak once more. Suppose 10 would be found there." And he said, "I will not destroy it for the sake of 10. So the Lord went his way as soon as he had finished speaking, and Abraham returned to his place. So, whoa, think about that. Think about that. That is so crazy. So he sees these. So first of all, Abraham's chilling during the day, and he sees these 3 wise men, 3 people, 3 men. It doesn't really give like why he sees that they're so great. What about him? He just says he lifted his eyes, looked up, and behold, 3 men were standing by him. So they just appeared, is what he's saying. Interesting. So he's sitting by the heat of the day. So he lifted his eyes and looked, and behold, 3 men were standing by him. And then he saw them. He ran from the door. So it was just like obvious. They were just like 3 guys were just chilling right there out of nowhere. They just appeared. And then so he just assumed they were angelic in nature. Maybe he felt that way. So then he went out and had the calves slaughtered and prepared, and had her make meal, or take meal and make bread, and they had milk. So, and then afterwards, they say they're going to Sodom. First of all, they say, hey, you're going to have a kid. God has said, yes, you're going to have a kid. And Sarah hears him talking. She laughs about it and is like, I'm way too old. There's no way I'm going to have a kid. And they're like, yep, you're going to have it. And then the crazy thing is God says to her, it says like, but Sarah denied it, but I did not laugh. She was afraid. Well, God knows you laughed. And Lord said to Abraham, why did Sarah laugh, saying, I surely bear a child since I'm old. Is there anything too hard for the Lord? So I think that's funny that she laughed and then was just like, oh, no, God, I didn't laugh. God knows everything. I think that's one of the things that upsets people so often when it comes to sin and different things like that is, the Bible holds a mirror up to you, whether you like it or not, and you're able to see your own reflection. A lot of times the people aren't happy with what they see. I've been there. I think that's what angers people so much. It's so funny because you see so many people out there and they're all, no, we're right. But yet the first thing they turn to is violence and anger. So anyway, let's see. And then so Sarah comes in, and then Abraham goes, and this is what's funny. So he's like, man, Sodom might not be that bad, God. So what if, there's like 2,000, 3,000, 10,000, whatever many people in Sodom. They didn't really say. But, there's like 10,000 people. It's like, what if I could find 50 people? What if there's 50 good people in there? Would that be enough for you to not destroy Sodom? Would you save it because there's 50 good people in there? You wipe it out. There's 50 good people are gone now. God's like, yeah, 50's cool, man. I could see that. I'll spare 50. No problem. And then Abraham, man, he's so funny. He's just like, all right, God, so thanks for the 50. But what about 45? What if 45? Like what if there was just like 5 less of that? Would that be enough still? Because like 45 is good. I mean, that's a lot of people still. And God's like, you know what, Abraham? You're right. 45. I'll take 45. Okay, so what about 40? What if we went with 40 people? What if I can find 40 good, righteous men out there in Sodom? Would that be enough to save the entire city? God's like, yep. 45, 40, yep, I'll do it. 40 is good. And then he jumps. I believe he jumps here from 40. And he's like, hey, what about 30? We're going in 5s here. No, let's just jump. What if 30? What if 30 were to come in? Would that be enough? And God just like, yes, that would be enough. I suppose 30 should be found. He's like, yes, I will do it for 30. And then he just like, again, we're not going to stick to these intervals of 5. Let's go 20. What if I could find 20 there? Would that be enough? And then God says, yep, let me spare Sodom if you could find 20, just 20 people. God went from 50 all the way down to 20. And now he's talking about 20. And then he says, you know what, God, please don't be angry. We've all had those conversations. We're just like, don't be mad, but what about? And he's doing the same thing. He's like, what about 10? And then God's like, yep. And then they're like, cool, 10 is a solid. He went from 50 to 10. And I haven't read this far ahead, but I pretty much know chapter 19. We're going to be seeing some end of some Sodom and Gomorrah. I mean, we've heard about this all before. I'm looking forward to that, sharing that with you guys tomorrow. But that was really cool. I enjoyed reading that. But that's so funny. That tells you how lenient God is, though. I mean, I don't know how big that city is, but even if it was like, let's say he just said 200, okay, 200 people. So he's like, okay, a quarter. He's like, yeah, quarter people, maybe that's a little unreasonable if 200 people. And I think it's probably more than 200. It's probably more like 1,000 maybe. But anyway, let's just say 200. And he cuts it all the way down to 5% of 200. You got to think 20 is 10%. 10 is 5% of 200. He's like, if you could just find 5% of that city and they're righteous and good, I won't destroy it. And spoiler alert, he's going to destroy it. That is wild when you think about that. So anyway, thanks so much. God bless you for joining me today on my journey. I'm loving reading the Bible and being with you like this and being able to discuss it. If anyone like to ever join in and stay, again, this is every morning, 7 days a week at 8 o'clock. We're going to be doing this 8 o'clock Pacific. If you'd like to join in, maybe get some back and forth dialogue, the things that I'm talking about, help me to be able to pronounce some of these words, I would love it. Thank you, Andrew, for showing up. And everyone, thanks for watching. I appreciate each and every one of you. I think you're amazing. God bless you, and I will see you tomorrow.